Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie The Bourne Identity, 2002, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. The Bourne Identity, 2002, is an intense action thriller that not only captivated audiences when it first premiered but also set the bar for the modern action genre. Directed by Doug Liman and based on the novel by Robert Ludlum, this film takes us on a wild ride through twists and turns, offering a pulse-pounding combination of suspense, mystery, and explosive action. It is the first film in the Jason Bourne series, which would go on to become a cultural phenomenon. But before the world knew Bourne as a name synonymous with high-stakes action, we were introduced to a man with no memory, no identity, and a deadly skill set that would make him a formidable force in a world he knew nothing about. From the very first scene, The Bourne Identity draws you in with its mysterious, high-stakes premise. A man is found floating in the Mediterranean Sea, shot and wounded, with no recollection of who he is. This man, played by Matt Damon, has no ID, no memory of his past, and no idea why he is being hunted by people who are trying to kill him. His only clue is a Swiss bank account number, which leads him on a dangerous journey to piece together his identity and uncover the reasons behind the hit on his life. But as he digs deeper, he realizes that someone powerful wants him dead, and they'll stop at nothing to do so. The story begins with Jason Bourne, Matt Damon, a man who has been found clinging to life after being shot, and, in his near-death state, suffers from amnesia. The plot immediately sets up a sense of mystery. Bourne has no idea who he is, where he came from, or why people are hunting him. He discovers that his only clue to his past is a bank account number stored in a secret compartment in his possession, leading him to a mysterious Swiss bank where he receives further information about his identity. In the chaos that ensues, Bourne meets Marie, Franka Potente, a German woman who becomes entangled in his journey as he tries to figure out what's happening. He discovers a series of cryptic clues pointing him toward the truth, but what he finds is a dangerous trail of lies, manipulation, and covert operations that seem to be intertwined with his life in ways he couldn't have imagined. The deeper he delves into the mystery, the more he realizes that he's part of a larger conspiracy, one that stretches back to his mysterious past and involves a covert CIA operation known as Treadstone. As Bourne tries to piece together who is behind the attempts on his life, the film throws us into a series of heart-stopping action sequences. Each moment of suspense keeps the audience on edge as Bourne uses his combat skills to evade attackers, all while trying to understand what's going on. The way the film balances psychological drama with action is nothing short of thrilling. This isn't just a movie about fight scenes and chase sequences. It's about a man grappling with his identity, his past, and his place in a dangerous world he never asked to be a part of. From car chases to rooftop escapes, The Bourne Identity showcases some of the most exciting and expertly crafted action scenes. However, it's the psychological drama that makes the film stand out. Bourne's inner conflict about whether to trust anyone, including Marie, is palpable, and it raises the stakes on every decision he makes. The film introduces us to a world where the lines between right and wrong are blurred, and where Bourne must question everything he thought he knew. What makes The Bourne Identity so captivating, however, is the emotional depth it brings to its central character. While the film is full of high-intensity action, it never loses sight of Bourne's humanity. His search for self-identity, his reluctance to trust those around him, and his growing bond with Marie all create a deeper emotional narrative that elevates the film from a standard action thriller into something more personal and complex. In this way, Bourne is not just trying to outrun his pursuers. He's also on a journey of self-discovery, forced to confront the truth about who he really is. The film's pacing is tight, with each twist and revelation landing perfectly, keeping the audience engaged from start to finish. Just as you think you've figured out the direction the story is headed in, a new piece of information comes to light, revealing the true nature of Bourne's past. In this way, the movie continually keeps viewers guessing, making it a thrilling ride from beginning to end. As the plot unravels, it's clear that the stakes are higher than Bourne originally imagined. The people after him aren't just ordinary criminals. They're part of a highly secretive and dangerous operation that has the power to change the course of his life. Bourne's struggle to find the truth and regain control over his own life becomes even more intense as he uncovers more layers of deception. The tension continues to build as Bourne's relationship with Marie deepens. She becomes his only ally in a world where everyone else seems to be either an enemy or an unknown variable. Their dynamic is fascinating to watch, as their growing connection adds emotional stakes to the already high-octane action sequences. But even as they form a bond, Bourne remains suspicious, unsure of who he can trust. And with every new piece of the puzzle, it becomes increasingly clear that things are much more complicated than they appear. The movie reaches a point where Bourne uncovers the truth about his involvement in the covert CIA Operation Treadstone. It's here that we're introduced to a shocking twist. Bourne, it turns out, was once a part of Treadstone, a program that created highly skilled operatives for assassination missions. He was trained to be a killer, a machine. But in the process, his memory was wiped, leaving him a man without a past, a blank slate who was then hunted by those who created him. The revelation of his past not only shifts the direction of the film but also deepens our understanding of Bourne as a character. He is not simply a victim of circumstance. He's a product of a dangerous, morally gray system. The realization that he is both the hunter and the hunted adds a new layer of complexity to the story and propels the movie toward its thrilling conclusion. But just as Bourne begins to understand who he was, the stakes only get higher. The final chase sequences and action scenes lead to a tense showdown that doesn't wrap everything up neatly, leaving room for more mystery, more questions, and of course, more action. It's the perfect setup for a franchise that would go on to explore the character's evolution further, diving deeper into his past and his attempts to reclaim his humanity. The final moments of the Bourne Identity leave viewers with a sense of anticipation and uncertainty, making it clear that Bourne's journey is far from over. This film is just the beginning of a larger story, one filled with intrigue, danger, and the search for self-identity. The Bourne Identity, 2002, is a perfect blend of action and psychological drama, a film that keeps you on the edge of your seat while also exploring deep questions about identity, memory, and trust. It's a thriller that doesn't just rely on spectacle. It dives deep into the complexities of its lead character, creating a film that resonates long after the credits roll. So, buckle up and get ready for an exhilarating ride through one of the most intense action films of the early 2000s. You won't want to miss a second of the action, the suspense, or the jaw-dropping revelations that make the Bourne Identity one of the greatest thrillers of its time. The opening of the Bourne Identity sets the stage for a mystery that will keep the audience on the edge of their seats. A man is found in the Mediterranean Sea, barely alive after being shot. His identity is a complete mystery, and he cannot remember who he is, what happened to him, or why he is being hunted. His only clues are a series of cryptic numbers and a Swiss bank account that holds the key to unlocking the secrets of his past. This man, played by Matt Damon, is Jason Bourne. After being discovered by fishermen and brought aboard a boat, Bourne is cared for by the crew, but he's confused and disoriented. He has no memory of his life prior to the incident. With no identification and no answers, he is left to piece together the fragments of his past. But it becomes clear quickly that someone is after him, someone who is willing to do anything to silence him. Bourne's search for answers begins when he realizes the mysterious number etched into his body leads him to a bank in Switzerland. There, he finds a safe deposit box that contains a stack of money and a second set of clues. The box also contains a passport, several identities, and money, but no clear explanation of who he really is. What it does give him, however, is his first real piece of the puzzle. His name, a set of numbers, Bourne, and a vague connection to a high-stakes world filled with danger. He is thrust into a game of survival, unsure of who to trust and how to proceed. From that moment, the Bourne Identity takes on a fast-paced, high-stakes quality. Bourne must navigate the world around him, trying to avoid the people who want him dead while simultaneously figuring out why they are after him. Throughout these opening moments, the film teases the audience with glimpses of something larger at play, a vast conspiracy that will unfold piece by piece. In a moment of clarity, Bourne manages to escape an attempt on his life, but not without a significant injury. He seeks refuge in a Parisian apartment where he makes a temporary home and starts to refine his skills. As Bourne's memory is slowly pieced back together, it's clear that he's more than just an average man. He's someone highly trained, capable of extraordinary feats of physical strength, precision, and quick decision-making. But these abilities only serve to raise even more questions. Who trained him? Who is behind the plot to kill him? And, most importantly, why does he have no recollection of his past? It's during this time that he crosses paths with Marie, Franka Potente, a German tourist who becomes unwittingly caught up in his journey. Bourne needs a way out of Paris, and after an altercation with the authorities, he convinces Marie to help him. Initially reluctant, she eventually agrees, and the two form an uneasy alliance. As the pair head toward a safe house, Bourne continues to rely on the few fragments of information he can piece together. But it's clear that there's more to the mystery than just missing memories. As Bourne and Marie's bond grows, Bourne continues to be pursued by a series of highly skilled operatives. These agents are after him for reasons that are still unclear to him, but they seem to be part of a covert organization with significant resources. The first time he faces one of these assailants, Bourne shows a glimpse of his training, dispatching the would-be attacker with cold efficiency. But as the danger intensifies, Bourne is left to question whether the only people he can trust are the very people after him. This sense of betrayal and confusion haunts him throughout the film, as he's forced to constantly watch his back while struggling to remember who he was. In a particularly gripping scene, Bourne makes his way through a shadowy underworld in order to extract more information. He's confronted with threats and obstacles at every turn. It becomes clear that no one, not even Marie, is beyond suspicion, and Bourne's distrust in those around him only deepens. Still, Bourne feels a growing connection to Marie, and through their interactions, we see the subtle development of their relationship. She is often the only one he can rely on, though he doesn't completely trust her at first. However, as the situation becomes more dangerous, the two grow closer, with Marie becoming more than just an ally. She becomes the one bright spot in a world full of deception and lies. Meanwhile, the world Bourne is trying to uncover is vast and dangerous. As he tries to learn more about himself, he starts to dig into a covert operation called Treadstone. This program, as he discovers, is responsible for training highly skilled operatives for assassination missions, killers who are seemingly invisible and untouchable. Bourne, as it turns out, was one of these operatives, but the knowledge of his involvement only complicates things. He's no longer just a man without memory. He's someone with a violent past, a past that's slowly being revealed through the trail of destruction left in his wake. And the more Bourne unravels, the more he learns that he's part of something much bigger, something far more dangerous than he had initially anticipated. The tension continues to mount as Bourne and Marie make their way toward a rendezvous point, but Bourne's past is always just one step behind him, threatening to catch up. The film keeps the audience guessing by hinting at larger conspiracies at play, all while Bourne tries to make sense of his role in them. What was once a simple story about a man trying to figure out who he is has evolved into a high-stakes conspiracy filled with betrayal, deception, and a sinister force that will stop at nothing to cover its tracks. The first half of the Bourne Identity is a relentless thrill ride, combining action, mystery, and psychological tension in a way that keeps viewers glued to the screen. The characters are deep, layered, and full of surprises, especially Jason Bourne. His journey of self-discovery, while fraught with danger, also highlights his inner struggle between the man he wants to be and the one he was trained to be. The world around him seems dark and uncertain, and with each new revelation, the stakes get higher. Bourne is not just fighting for survival. He's fighting for his very identity, as he must confront the darker side of himself and the organization that made him what he is. As the first half of the movie concludes, the audience is left with more questions than answers. Bourne is still running from unknown pursuers, trying to stay one step ahead of those who want him dead, all while piecing together his fractured past. The tension continues to build, with each moment more intense than the last. And though we may have some clues about the bigger picture, there's no denying that the Bourne Identity is far from over, and the answers to all the questions we've been left with are yet to come. The first half is just the beginning, with so many twists and turns still ahead, promising even more excitement, suspense, and high-stakes drama as the journey to uncover the truth continues. The tension in the Bourne Identity reaches its peak as Jason Bourne's search for his true identity intensifies, and the perilous game of survival takes an even more dangerous turn. What began as a quest for answers evolves into an all-out battle, not just against the unknown forces hunting him but against the memories and skills that define who he really is. As the pieces of the puzzle start to fit together, the stakes rise, and Bourne's journey becomes a race against time. As Bourne and Marie continue their journey together, they come under increasingly dangerous pursuit by agents who seem to be everywhere, lurking in the shadows. Each attempt on his life serves as a harsh reminder that Bourne isn't just a man with amnesia, he's a target. The more Bourne uncovers about the covert Operation Treadstone, the more he realizes that he's not just a casualty in a larger conspiracy. He is its product. The knowledge that he was once an operative, a highly trained assassin, only deepens the uncertainty about his future. Can he continue to trust himself as his memories resurface, revealing a past steeped in violence and manipulation? The suspense grows when Bourne learns that Treadstone is more than just an operation. It is a well-oiled machine designed to produce highly skilled killers, each of whom is erased of any personal identity, much like Bourne. His mission to uncover the truth leads him to a revelation that shakes him to his core. Treadstone is still operational, and the people who once controlled him haven't given up on erasing him. Bourne isn't just fighting for survival. He's fighting for his life and against an institution that used him as a pawn. One of the film's pivotal moments comes when Bourne and Marie are forced to confront the very system that created him. It's here that Bourne encounters a former Treadstone operative, who, like him, has been trained for lethal combat. This meeting is both shocking and revealing, as it forces Bourne to face the grim truth about what Treadstone turned him into, a weapon. But as he confronts the man, it becomes clear that Bourne is not merely fighting for his freedom. He's fighting against the very nature of the operation that has shaped him into the man he is. With his skills and training, he knows how to handle these threats, but now the stakes are higher, and the enemies are more dangerous than ever. As Bourne digs deeper into the mystery, he uncovers a crucial piece of the puzzle: the mysterious CIA operative known only as the Director. This figure, who is orchestrating the Treadstone program, is a powerful, shadowy figure who's determined to maintain control over Bourne and others like him. What Bourne doesn't yet know is that the Director's presence is closer to him than he could ever imagine. As the tension mounts, Bourne begins to suspect that the conspiracy extends far beyond just the Treadstone program. It reaches into the CIA itself, an organization full of corruption and secrecy. One of the turning points in the film comes when Bourne confronts a man named Carlos. Carlos is a figure who, until now, has remained somewhat enigmatic. However, as Bourne catches up with him, it becomes clear that Carlos has more answers than he initially let on. The revelation of Carlos's involvement with Treadstone and his connection to Bourne's past is a crucial moment in the story. As the chase intensifies, the stakes of Bourne's journey grow, and it's clear that the danger is far from over. The movie reaches its peak when Bourne comes face to face with the Director, the mastermind behind the operation that has controlled him for so long. The confrontation is a tense one, filled with twists and emotional intensity. Bourne's anger, fueled by the betrayal he's experienced, is palpable. He has been used as a tool, stripped of his identity, and now he's seeking justice. This final confrontation, though, is not about seeking revenge. It's about reclaiming his sense of self and taking control of his own destiny. The ultimate climax of the Bourne Identity occurs during a heart-stopping chase through the streets of Paris, where Bourne, with nowhere else to turn, takes drastic measures to ensure his survival. It's a moment of reckoning, where Bourne's finely honed skills as a former assassin are put to the test. The fight sequences, both brutal and choreographed with precision, heighten the tension as Bourne finds himself on the run yet again. But this time, the stakes are higher. He's no longer just trying to escape. He's fighting for something far more important: the truth. As Bourne faces off against his enemies, the film's tone shifts from a fight for survival to one of resolution. In a stunning twist, Bourne uncovers the shocking truth about his true identity. He is a man who was not just the victim of a conspiracy, but a man who was once an active participant. This revelation shakes him to his core, but it also gives him the clarity he needs to confront the CIA and take control of his life. No longer a tool of Treadstone, Bourne is ready to step into the light and face his demons head-on. The conclusion of the Bourne Identity leaves the audience with a sense of catharsis, but it also opens the door for further exploration. Bourne, having regained control over his life, makes the decision to move forward, but the questions of who he is and what he's capable of still linger. The film concludes with a sense of resolution for Bourne's journey, but also with the realization that this is just the beginning of a larger story. The movie, while bringing closure to many of its plot points, sets the stage for the sequels that will explore the depths of Bourne's past, the lengths he must go to reclaim his future, and the consequences of the choices he's made. Throughout the second half of the Bourne Identity, the tension builds to a fever pitch, with Bourne facing danger at every turn. Each twist in the plot deepens the mystery surrounding his identity, and each revelation challenges his perception of reality. As he uncovers the truth about his past and the forces working against him, the stakes grow higher, and the action intensifies. The film's ultimate resolution offers a satisfying conclusion to Bourne's journey of self-discovery, while still leaving room for further exploration in the saga. By the end of the film, Bourne has regained control over his life, but the emotional and psychological scars from his past remain. The film leaves the audience with a sense of anticipation, eagerly awaiting what will come next. Bourne may have uncovered the truth, but the journey to redemption is far from over. And as the credits roll, we are left to wonder what lies ahead for the man who once had no memory, but who now knows exactly who he is, and what he's capable of. Jason Bourne, the central character of the Bourne Identity, is a man whose identity is stripped away, leaving him to navigate a world of uncertainty and danger. Played by Matt Damon, Bourne is a character who embodies the qualities of strength, intelligence, and determination, but also vulnerability and confusion. He is introduced as a man with no memory, struggling to piece together the fragments of his past. This lack of identity is not just a physical or mental condition, it's a metaphor for the loss of humanity. Bourne's quest for self-discovery is at the heart of the movie, and it's through his journey that the audience becomes deeply invested in his fate. From the very first scene, Bourne is portrayed as a man who is capable and skilled, but deeply confused. When he is rescued from the sea, his memory is a blank slate, and he has no recollection of who he is or how he got to the point where he was found. This sense of loss permeates the entire film and shapes his character. He isn't just trying to figure out what happened to him. He's trying to understand who he is at his core. He's a blank canvas, forced to face the brutal realities of the world around him without the comfort of knowing who he truly is. It's an identity crisis that many can relate to, albeit on a much smaller scale. For Bourne, however, it's life and death. What makes Bourne so compelling is the way he reacts to this loss. He doesn't break down or become paralyzed by fear. He becomes resourceful and resourceful fast. He taps into instincts and skills that he doesn't even understand he possesses, but these instincts are undeniable. He fights with precision and intelligence, which leads him to the realization that he's been trained for something far beyond ordinary life. As the film progresses, Bourne begins to piece together his history, but he's always one step behind the truth. There's a sense of betrayal as he discovers his involvement in covert government operations, but it also drives him to seek justice, to take back control of his life. What makes Bourne's character even more fascinating is his complexity. He's not a typical action hero who is defined solely by physical prowess. While he is undeniably capable in hand-to-hand combat and strategy, he is also a man haunted by the consequences of his past actions. The realization that he has been an instrument of violence, someone trained to kill, adds layers of moral conflict to his character. Bourne isn't just fighting for survival. He's trying to atone for his past, to come to terms with the fact that his very existence has been manipulated. Throughout the film, Bourne grapples with this internal struggle. He is a man who has been used as a tool, a pawn in a much larger game, and yet he doesn't want to become what he's been made to be. His journey is one of redemption, not just for the crimes he's committed, but for the loss of his true self. Bourne's relationship with Marie, played by Franka Potente, further deepens his character. While Marie is initially an outsider to his world, she becomes a crucial ally and, over time, a source of emotional support. Bourne's connection to Marie is different from the usual action movie romance. It's built on trust and mutual survival. Marie sees something in Bourne that no one else does. A man who is more than his past, more than the weapon he was trained to be. Through their relationship, Bourne is allowed to feel human again. The moments of tenderness and vulnerability he shares with Marie contrast sharply with the brutal, high-stakes world that Bourne is thrust into. As they journey together, Marie becomes a reminder to Bourne of the man he could be, if only he could leave his past behind. One of the more interesting aspects of Bourne's character is how his memory loss impacts his interactions with the world around him. He's constantly piecing things together. Snippets of memories, clues about his identity, fragmented thoughts that don't always align with the person he is in the present. This adds a level of intrigue to his character because the audience is just as unsure as Bourne is about his past. As he navigates the world, trying to uncover the truth about who he is, the audience watches him change. He's not the same person at the end of the movie as he was at the beginning. His journey is one of self-discovery and growth, and each new piece of the puzzle offers him, and us, a little more clarity. In addition to his internal struggles, Bourne's external battles are just as compelling. Throughout the film, he faces threats from all sides: CIA operatives, other highly trained assassins, and the government itself. Yet, despite the odds stacked against him, Bourne remains calm, collected, and always steps ahead of his pursuers. He's a master strategist, using his environment to his advantage and turning the tables on those who try to hunt him down. The way Bourne navigates the world around him, decoding threats, improvising escape plans, and staying one step ahead, further solidifies his reputation as a resourceful, intelligent, and lethal operative. But Bourne's true strength isn't just physical or intellectual, it's emotional. His vulnerability and search for answers humanize him in ways that set him apart from typical action heroes. Despite his military training, despite the fact that he's been conditioned to kill without question, Bourne is capable of questioning everything. He's not a man who blindly follows orders. He's a man who challenges everything he's been taught. His self-awareness is a crucial aspect of his character, and it's what makes him sympathetic to the audience. He is not just a man trying to survive. He is a man trying to regain his humanity. The film's pacing works in favor of Bourne's character development, gradually peeling away the layers of his identity. In the beginning, we only know him as a man in search of his past, but as the film progresses, we see that Bourne is not just fighting against external enemies. He's fighting against the very institution that created him. The Treadstone program, and its implications, are at the core of Bourne's emotional journey. He's not just an innocent man caught in a conspiracy. He's a man who was made into a weapon, who was trained to be something he's not, and now he has to fight to reclaim his life. What makes Bourne such a compelling character is his depth. He's a man of action, but also of introspection. He's someone who has been torn apart by the forces that shaped him, but he is determined to rebuild himself. Through his journey, the audience learns not only about the world of covert operations and secret government projects, but also about the nature of identity, free will, and the search for redemption. Bourne's struggle is universal. It's about finding out who you really are when everything around you is telling you that you're something else. Jason Bourne's character is one of the most iconic in action movie history because of his complexity. He's more than just a trained killer. He's a man searching for his soul. His vulnerability, his intellect, his emotional depth, and his fierce determination to regain his identity make him a multifaceted character who is both relatable and heroic. By the end of the Bourne Identity, we don't just see him as a man who has survived a dangerous conspiracy. We see him as someone who has come to terms with who he was, who he is, and who he can be. The making of the Bourne Identity, 2002, is a testament to how great filmmaking can emerge from unexpected circumstances. The film, based on Robert Ludlum's 1980 novel, was a massive success, spawning multiple sequels and solidifying its place in the action-thriller genre. But behind the polished and suspenseful surface of the movie lies a wealth of fascinating, strange, and surprising facts about its production. From casting decisions to unexpected accidents on set, these behind-the-scenes stories show how the film came together in ways no one could have predicted. Let's start with the most unexpected aspect of the production: the casting of Matt Damon as Jason Bourne. At the time, Damon was known more for his roles in dramas and comedies. He wasn't the action hero type. However, director Doug Liman saw something in Damon that made him a perfect fit for the role, despite his lack of experience in action movies. There were doubts from studio executives, who felt Damon wasn't the traditional choice to headline a high-octane action film. They were more inclined to cast someone with a bigger physical presence, a well-known action star like Brad Pitt or Matt's best friend, Ben Affleck, who had experience in the genre. But Liman was determined to cast Damon, seeing his intelligence, relatability, and the ability to portray a character who was not just a generic action hero but a man questioning his very identity. What many don't know is that Matt Damon wasn't the first choice for the role. In fact, the producers originally approached actors such as Leonardo DiCaprio and even Russell Crowe for the part. However, these actors either passed on the project or were not available at the time. Eventually, Damon's audition won over the team, and what seemed like a risky casting decision paid off in the long run. Damon's portrayal of Bourne was subtle, smart, and incredibly grounded, traits that elevated the film and made Bourne stand out from other action heroes. Another strange yet fascinating aspect of the movie's production is how the filmmakers embraced a raw, realistic, and grounded approach to the action scenes. Unlike most action movies at the time, which relied heavily on CGI and over-the-top stunts, the Bourne Identity embraced a much more practical and gritty style. Doug Liman, the director, wanted the film to feel like it was happening in real life, so much so that he and the crew intentionally avoided using a lot of CGI effects. They wanted the audience to feel the intensity of Bourne's struggle, not just visually, but emotionally. That meant using real locations, realistic fight choreography, and minimizing special effects whenever possible. One of the most iconic action sequences in the film is the car chase through Paris, which took the entire crew by surprise. The sequence, which had Bourne evading pursuers in a Mini Cooper, wasn't originally planned to be as intense as it turned out. The production team had a limited budget, and the car chase was initially conceived as a simple sequence. However, once they started filming on the narrow streets of Paris, the car chase took on a life of its own. The crew had no choice but to improvise. The narrow alleys and bustling traffic made the situation more dangerous, and the cast and crew had to adapt quickly to the unpredictable circumstances. Interestingly, the stunt drivers didn't have to use special effects to create the chaos you see on screen. Most of the action was achieved through skillful driving and real-world obstacles. What's even more surprising is how the Mini Cooper was chosen for the chase. Originally, the filmmakers had planned on using a larger, faster car for the sequence. But when they arrived in Paris, they realized that a bigger vehicle wouldn't be able to navigate the tight streets and alleys. The Mini Cooper, known for its small size and agile handling, was a last-minute substitution, but it turned out to be perfect for the job. It's one of those rare cases where a film's logistical challenges led to a creative solution that worked out better than anyone could have imagined. Another strange and unexpected occurrence during the production was the film's fast-paced editing style. The Bourne Identity is known for its quick cuts, shaky camera work, and rapid-fire editing, which gives the film its sense of urgency and intensity. What many don't realize is that this editing style wasn't always the plan. Initially, the filmmakers shot the film with a more traditional, slower pace in mind. But as the editing progressed, it became clear that the movie's action sequences needed to be faster, more disorienting, and more engaging. The decision to switch to rapid, fragmented cuts was a pivotal moment in the film's creation, and it helped set the tone for the entire franchise. The shaky cam technique became one of the defining features of the Bourne Identity, and it's often credited with revolutionizing the action genre. The camera was never still. It was constantly in motion, moving with the characters, mimicking their frantic and disoriented experiences. While this technique was controversial at the time, it became a signature style for the series and set the tone for subsequent action films. However, it wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was a response to the logistics of the shoot. Many of the film's action sequences were shot in real-world environments with tight schedules, and the use of the shaky cam allowed the filmmakers to capture the intensity of the moment without worrying about perfection in framing or composition. The film's success was also driven by its use of real-world locations. The Bourne Identity was shot across several iconic European cities, including Paris, Prague, and Berlin. The filmmakers wanted to create a sense of authenticity, and by using real locations, they were able to infuse the movie with a level of realism that studio sets couldn't replicate. The decision to use natural lighting also added to the film's raw and gritty atmosphere. The filmmakers avoided overpolished sets and unrealistic environments, instead opting for the natural beauty of real-world cities, adding depth and texture to the story. In addition to the logistical hurdles and creative risks, there were also some humorous and strange moments on set. One of the most notable anecdotes comes from the film's fight scenes. The choreography, while realistic, was not always easy for the actors to execute. The fight scenes were often intense, with Bourne and his enemies engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat. But because of the film's grounded realistic approach to action, the cast didn't have the luxury of rehearsing the fight scenes for weeks on end. Instead, they had to learn the choreography in just a few days. Matt Damon, who was known for his athleticism, had to undergo intense training to prepare for his role, including martial arts and weaponry lessons. While Damon is known for his dedication, one of the funny behind-the-scenes stories is that, during the first few takes of the fight scenes, he accidentally punched his co-star, Clive Owen, in the face. Thankfully, Owen was a good sport about it, and the scene was eventually filmed without any further accidents. Another strange fact about the Bourne Identity is how the film's tone was influenced by the political climate of the time. When the movie was being made in the early 2000s, there was a heightened sense of paranoia in the world, particularly surrounding covert government operations and the idea of surveillance. The movie tapped into these fears, with Bourne's struggle for identity mirroring the larger anxieties of a post-9/11 world. The filmmakers didn't intend for the movie to be overtly political, but the themes of identity, government secrecy, and personal freedom resonated with audiences in a way that was very much of its time. The film also features a hauntingly minimalist score by composer John Powell. Powell's music, which was composed specifically for the movie, perfectly complements the film's themes of tension and uncertainty. The score is subtle but effective, enhancing the film's suspense without overshadowing the action. Powell's work on the Bourne Identity was revolutionary in many ways, introducing a new, more subdued sound for action movies that would influence many future films in the genre. Looking back at the production of the Bourne Identity, it's clear that the film was a product of creative risks, logistical challenges, and unexpected moments of inspiration. It's one of those rare instances where the strange and the unconventional became part of the movie's DNA, leading to a thrilling and unforgettable cinematic experience. From its casting choices to its innovative action sequences, The Bourne Identity was a movie that constantly defied expectations, and it's these very surprises that have made it a beloved classic in the action thriller genre. The film's production was full of behind-the-scenes stories, accidents turned triumphs, and choices that would shape not just the movie but the entire series that followed. The Bourne Identity, 2002, marked a pivotal shift in the world of action cinema. Directed by Doug Liman, the film introduced audiences to a new kind of action hero, one who was not invincible or superhuman but deeply human, struggling with his identity, memory, and the forces that manipulate him. When it was released, it wasn't just a blockbuster action film. It was an intense psychological thriller that married adrenaline-pumping sequences with a deeper emotional core. Looking at the significant events and their critical impact on the film's reception, it becomes clear how The Bourne Identity revolutionized the action genre while remaining deeply relevant to themes of identity, agency, and personal freedom. The first significant event in the film is, of course, Jason Bourne's, Matt Damon, discovery of his amnesia. As he is pulled from the sea with no recollection of who he is or how he got there, the audience is thrust into a story of personal discovery. This beginning sets the tone for the entire film. Unlike the typical action hero who knows exactly who they are and why they are fighting, Bourne is an enigma, a blank slate. His search for his identity mirrors the audience's quest for understanding, making it relatable on a personal level. It's not just about who Bourne is as a person. It's about what happens when our sense of self is ripped away from us and how we navigate the world when we no longer have a firm grasp on our past. Critically speaking, this premise was fresh and resonant in the post-9/11 world. The early 2000s were a time of heightened anxiety around government surveillance, covert operations, and the question of individual autonomy. The Bourne Identity tapped into these fears, crafting a narrative about an individual whose life is torn apart by shadowy forces beyond his control. Bourne's struggle for autonomy is also a reflection of the wider political climate, where citizens were becoming increasingly aware of their vulnerability to systems that operated out of sight, hidden from the public scrutiny. This political resonance was not lost on critics and audiences alike, who found themselves grappling with the same questions of privacy, manipulation, and the power of unseen forces. As the plot unfolds, Bourne's attempts to piece together his fragmented memories and discover his true identity are mirrored by his gradual realization that he's being hunted. The critical turning point in the film is when Bourne first realizes that he is being pursued not only by assassins but by the very people who created him. This is where the psychological depth of the film becomes evident. Bourne's identity crisis transcends a simple memory loss. He is being hunted by his former employers, people he once trusted and served. This twist is a critical moment because it reveals the complexity of Bourne's character. He is a man not just trying to survive, but also trying to find a moral compass in a world that has made him into a weapon. The emotional weight of this realization hits a high point when Bourne learns that his past is intertwined with violence and manipulation. This moment, in which he learns the truth about his involvement in covert government operations, strikes a chord with audiences, as it taps into the very real fear of being trapped in a system that defines us and dictates our actions. Bourne's struggle is not just against the external forces trying to kill him, but also against the internal battle of reconciling the man he is becoming with the man he used to be, or might have been. For critics, this theme of identity was a crucial factor in the film's success. Bourne was not your typical action hero. He didn't have a clear-cut moral stance. He was conflicted and confused, unsure of who he could trust or what he was fighting for. This ambiguity created a character that felt real and vulnerable, someone the audience could root for because his struggle was so human. By having a protagonist who was grappling with his own sense of self, the Bourne Identity offered something more than a typical action film. It offered a psychological drama wrapped in an action thriller skin. Another key event that shaped the film's emotional resonance occurs when Bourne meets Marie, Franka Potente. Their relationship becomes the emotional anchor of the film. At first, their interactions are strained. Bourne is distrustful and emotionally distant. However, as they grow closer, their bond becomes a critical element of the plot. Marie represents one of the few constants in Bourne's chaotic world. She is the one person who sees him as more than just an assassin or a weapon. She sees him as a person, someone with a potential for redemption. In a world filled with shadows and manipulation, Marie serves as a symbol of hope and humanity. Their evolving relationship offers the audience a glimpse of what Bourne might have been, had he not been manipulated into becoming a killing machine. This relationship brings an emotional depth to the film that goes beyond mere physical combat or spy drama. The film's exploration of Bourne's relationships, especially with Marie, adds a layer of emotional complexity that sets the Bourne Identity apart from typical action fare. Critics praised the emotional vulnerability Damon brought to the role of Bourne, and this emotional investment made the film resonate on a deeper level. The relationship between Bourne and Marie is not just a romantic subplot, it's a thematic exploration of trust, identity, and the possibility of redemption. Their connection highlights one of the core ideas of the film, that even in a world full of manipulation and deception, human connections still matter, and they can offer a way out of the darkness. As the film moves toward its climax, the tension builds as Bourne unravels more about his past, and the stakes grow higher. The moment when Bourne confronts the people responsible for his transformation into a covert operative is both thrilling and poignant. It's a moment of reckoning, not just for Bourne but for the film's broader themes. The emotional payoff here is significant. Bourne isn't just defeating his enemies, he's reclaiming his autonomy and identity. This thematic resolution is what makes the Bourne Identity stand out. It's not just about the action and thrills, but about Bourne's journey of self-discovery and his struggle to regain his humanity. The impact of these key events is evident in how the Bourne Identity was received both critically and commercially. The film was a success, grossing over $200 million worldwide, but its influence on the action genre was perhaps even more profound. It helped redefine the modern action film, moving away from the bombastic, over-the-top spectacles of the 90s and ushering in a new era of grounded, gritty, and realistic action. The film's thematic exploration of identity, control, and freedom struck a chord with audiences, making it not just a box office hit but a culturally significant film. The Bourne Identity was lauded for its innovative approach to the action genre. Critics appreciated how it used its action sequences not just for spectacle, but as a means to further the film's themes. The film's quick cuts, shaky camera work, and raw fight choreography served to heighten the intensity of Bourne's internal struggle. Every punch, every chase, felt real because they were directly connected to Bourne's emotional state. The action wasn't just external, it was tied to the film's deeper exploration of identity, memory, and personal agency. The film's success also paved the way for a wave of films that followed in its footsteps, influencing everything from Mission Impossible to James Bond. The success of the Bourne Identity marked the beginning of the Bourne franchise, with 2 sequels that would further explore Bourne's identity crisis and the forces that manipulated him. The success of the film wasn't just in its ability to entertain, it was in its ability to resonate with audiences on a thematic level. The Bourne series became a cultural touchstone for a new generation of action films that were smarter, more intense, and emotionally resonant. In conclusion, The Bourne Identity became a standout film not just because of its gripping action sequences, but because of the way it tackled deep themes of identity, autonomy, and personal redemption. The film's impact is a testament to its ability to balance action and intellect, thrills, and emotional depth. Its critical success came not just from its innovative filmmaking and heart-pounding moments, but from the way it connected to a broader cultural and political landscape. Through Jason Bourne's journey, the film captured the anxieties of the time, about government control, personal freedom, and the fight for one's sense of self, and turned them into a riveting cinematic experience. The Bourne Identity remains a masterclass in blending action with thematic depth, offering not just a thrilling ride, but an exploration of what it means to be human in a world that often seeks to strip us of our identity. The Bourne Identity, 2002, is not just a thrilling action movie, it's a meticulously crafted film that pushed the boundaries of both the genre and filmmaking techniques. Directed by Doug Liman and based on Robert Ludlum's 1980 novel of the same name, the film broke new ground in action cinema with its gritty realism, rapid-fire editing, and intense character-driven plot. But the story behind its production is just as exciting as the story within the movie itself. From its origins as a challenging adaptation to its unique behind-the-scenes experiences, The Bourne Identity holds a treasure trove of fascinating insights into how it was made. The journey of creating The Bourne Identity began with its source material, Robert Ludlum's best-selling novel. The novel, which is filled with complex characters and intricate espionage plots, was seen as a difficult piece to adapt for the big screen. When the rights to the book were acquired in the early 90s, Hollywood was already well-versed in spy thrillers, thanks to the likes of James Bond, and the challenge was to make the material stand out in an already saturated genre. The production team knew they had to find a way to make this story feel fresh, grounded, and more intense than what audiences had come to expect. The first major decision was the casting of Matt Damon as Jason Bourne. While Damon was known for his roles in films like Good Will Hunting, 1997, and The Talented Mr. Ripley, 1999, he was not the obvious choice for an action film. Initially, many people were skeptical about his ability to pull off the role of an action hero. But Damon's casting was part of the plan to make the film stand out in the spy thriller genre. Doug Liman, the director, was looking for a lead actor who could bring emotional depth to the role, and he saw Damon as the perfect fit. In fact, it wasn't just his acting ability that made Damon stand out, it was his commitment to getting physically in shape for the film. Damon underwent a rigorous training regimen for the Bourne Identity, and he worked with fight choreographers to ensure that his action sequences looked realistic. This dedication to physicality would go on to define the character of Jason Bourne, making him more relatable and grounded compared to the typical larger-than-life action heroes. Once Damon was cast, the filmmakers began working on the script. The adaptation process itself wasn't smooth sailing. The Bourne Identity has a labyrinthine plot filled with subplots and twists, and the challenge for screenwriters was to capture the essence of Ludlum's novel without losing its core appeal. The original script went through several rewrites, but eventually, Tony Gilroy, who would later go on to write the sequels, was brought in to refine the screenplay. His task was to strip down the narrative to its most compelling elements, focusing on the psychological journey of Jason Bourne as he struggles with his identity. The film's success lies not just in the action sequences but in its ability to explore Bourne's internal conflict, an aspect that was emphasized in the screenplay. Instead of the film relying on traditional spy tropes, it used Bourne's amnesia as the central story device, making him the everyman caught in extraordinary circumstances. When it came to the actual shooting, one of the most important decisions made by the filmmakers was the choice to film on location in various European cities. Instead of building artificial sets, the production team decided to shoot in real-world locations like Paris, Prague, and the Swiss Alps, which brought a raw, gritty energy to the film. Filming in real-world environments helped to create an immersive atmosphere, making the audience feel like they were right there with Jason Bourne as he navigated the dangerous world of international espionage. The movie's iconic car chase scenes in Paris, for example, were filmed using real cars in real locations, which added a sense of authenticity and urgency to the action. These scenes were shot with minimal CGI, and the filmmakers used practical effects, which made the stunts feel more visceral and grounded in reality. But shooting on location didn't come without its challenges. The production team faced the usual difficulties of working in foreign cities, including logistical issues and the need for permits to shoot in public spaces. One of the more amusing anecdotes from the production involves the iconic scene in which Bourne narrowly escapes a group of assassins while driving through the streets of Paris. To capture the intensity of the chase, the filmmakers had to perform several dangerous stunts with real vehicles. During one of the takes, an unexpected problem arose. The streets of Paris were so congested with traffic that the chase was delayed multiple times, forcing the production to adapt on the fly. Despite these setbacks, the filmmakers managed to keep the energy and authenticity of the chase intact, delivering one of the most memorable sequences in the film. Another key part of the film's success came from the decision to use a unique style of cinematography. Director Doug Liman and cinematographer Oliver Wood took a deliberate approach to the film's visual style, favoring a handheld camera technique that became synonymous with the film's action sequences. The handheld shots allowed for a more intimate and chaotic feeling, which worked perfectly with the psychological tension of the story. In action scenes, particularly the fight sequences, the rapid camera movement created a sense of disorientation, putting the audience in Bourne's shoes as he struggles to stay ahead of his pursuers. These shaky, almost dizzying shots were a departure from the more traditional, stable cinematography seen in action films at the time and helped set the Bourne Identity apart from other spy thrillers. The production team also made innovative choices in how they handled the film's sound design. The sound editing and music played a crucial role in establishing the film's tense atmosphere. Composer John Powell's score for the movie, which blends orchestral elements with electronic beats, was unconventional for a film of this genre. The music provided an undercurrent of urgency, seamlessly mirroring Bourne's internal conflict as well as the film's rapid pacing. Powell's music was able to convey Bourne's emotional journey while simultaneously elevating the intensity of the action scenes. The sound design, which included a mixture of ambient noise and sharp, sudden sounds during key moments, further contributed to the heightened tension and mood of the film. An interesting production fact revolves around the film's final fight scene between Jason Bourne and his primary antagonist, Carlos, played by the intense actor Clive Owen. This confrontation, which takes place in a French apartment, was shot with minimal special effects. The fight was designed to be gritty and grounded, avoiding the flashy, choreographed fights common in other action films. Damon and Owen both trained extensively for the scene, working with fight coordinators to ensure the fight looked authentic and hard-hitting. The result was a raw, brutal fight that felt real. Two men, equally skilled, clashing in a fight for survival. The filmmakers wanted this fight to be a defining moment in the film, highlighting Bourne's transformation from a confused amnesiac to a skilled operative who can defend himself against deadly threats. The success of the Bourne Identity is also a testament to the strong collaboration between the cast and crew. The chemistry between Matt Damon and Franka Potente, who plays Marie, was essential to the film's emotional depth. Potente's portrayal of Marie, a key ally and love interest, brought a human element to Bourne's journey, grounding the movie's larger-than-life moments with a sense of reality. Damon and Potente's interactions were natural and effortless, making their on-screen relationship feel genuine. There are stories from the set that emphasize how well the cast worked together, including how Damon and Potente would often improvise dialogue, giving their characters a sense of spontaneity and realism that helped them come to life. As with many major Hollywood productions, the Bourne Identity faced its share of challenges in terms of deadlines and budget constraints. However, the filmmakers' commitment to making the film as realistic and exciting as possible paid off. The Bourne Identity was made for a modest budget of $60 million, but its box office performance was exceptional, grossing over $200 million worldwide. This success would go on to spawn a lucrative franchise, with multiple sequels and a lasting impact on the spy thriller genre. But beyond the financial success, the film was praised for its ability to combine action, suspense, and emotional depth in a way that hadn't been seen in the genre before. In conclusion, The Bourne Identity stands as a prime example of how a film can break new ground by combining innovation in both storytelling and filmmaking techniques. The production was marked by challenges, creative risks, and above all, a desire to bring something new to the action genre. The behind-the-scenes stories, from the unconventional casting to the meticulous attention to detail in the action sequences, reflect the passion and commitment that went into making the film. The Bourne Identity continues to be remembered as a game-changer in the world of action cinema, and the fascinating production facts behind its creation only add to its legacy as a film that is both thrilling and groundbreaking in equal measure. The Bourne Identity, 2002, was a game-changing film, not just in terms of its plot and performances, but also in its use of settings and cinematography. From the moment Jason Bourne is introduced in the film, floating unconscious in the Mediterranean Sea, the locations and cinematic elements play a vital role in defining the tone and atmosphere of the movie. Every setting, every shot, and every scene was chosen and executed to serve the film's central themes: identity, memory, and survival. Through strategic use of real-world locations, camera techniques, and visual elements, the film creates an immersive experience that heightens the stakes and keeps the audience on the edge of their seat. The film's setting choices, Paris, Prague, and the remote Swiss Alps, are not just locations for the action. They are characters in their own right, contributing to the overarching narrative. The choice of these cities was integral to creating the gritty, grounded tone that the Bourne Identity became known for. Unlike many Hollywood spy thrillers that feature artificial sets or exotic locations for the sake of spectacle, the Bourne Identity prides itself on its realistic, practical settings that place the audience directly into the action. The way the film uses these locations contributes significantly to its identity. The first major setting we are introduced to is the Mediterranean Sea. When Jason Bourne is discovered, floating unconscious in the water, the setting instantly places the viewer into an unknown world. We don't know who Bourne is, where he came from, or how he ended up in such a perilous situation. The setting is mysterious and foreboding. It's a moment that allows the film to explore the theme of amnesia. The wide, open ocean reflects the vast emptiness of Bourne's mind. The ambiguity of his surroundings, far from civilization, floating in a place that could be either a rescue or a death sentence, creates an atmosphere of isolation and uncertainty. As he is rescued by a fishing boat, the film sets the stage for the journey of self-discovery and survival that will follow. From this initial disorienting moment, the Bourne Identity quickly moves to urban settings that are rich in cultural and historical significance. The choice of Paris, one of the most iconic cities in the world, as a primary location was no accident. The city's grandeur and complexity serve as a stark contrast to Bourne's lack of memory and his quest to piece together his fragmented identity. Paris, with its sweeping boulevards, narrow alleyways, and iconic landmarks, is both a romantic and dangerous setting. It is in Paris that Bourne begins to understand the reality of the situation he is in. He is being hunted, but he doesn't know why. His first confrontation with danger occurs against the backdrop of the busy, vibrant city, and the location plays a key role in making the sequence feel more intense. The busy streets and narrow corridors in Paris become a labyrinth in which Bourne is both the hunter and the hunted, a subtle nod to the confusion and disorientation he feels throughout the film. One of the most significant settings in the Bourne Identity is the apartment Bourne seeks refuge in, situated in the heart of Paris. The apartment becomes both a safe haven and a prison. While it offers Bourne temporary shelter, it also symbolizes the mental and emotional walls he is building around himself. As the apartment is small, sparsely furnished, and isolated, it visually mirrors the narrowness of Bourne's understanding of his own life. The tight framing in the apartment, especially during scenes of tension, emphasizes the feeling of being trapped, both physically and psychologically. It's a place where Bourne can no longer hide from his reality and is forced to confront his uncertain past. The film takes us from the streets of Paris to the outskirts of Prague, another major setting in the film. Prague offers a stark contrast to the bustling atmosphere of Paris. It is quieter, colder, and more ominous, reflecting Bourne's growing sense of danger and his relentless pursuit of the truth. The Prague setting plays a significant role in deepening the mystery surrounding Bourne's identity. It's here that the film's most intense action sequence takes place, as Bourne is pursued by assassins through the city. The narrow, cobblestone streets of Prague create an environment that is both claustrophobic and expansive. The tight alleyways, shadowy corners, and towering buildings create a sense of being trapped in a maze, with no escape from the relentless forces closing in on Bourne. The cinematography in the Bourne Identity is closely tied to its settings. Cinematographer Oliver Wood's use of the handheld camera technique became one of the defining features of the film's visual style. The shaky, almost jittery camera movements help to convey the sense of disorientation and chaos that Jason Bourne feels as he tries to understand who he is and why he is being pursued. The camera closely follows Bourne in the midst of action sequences, making the audience feel like they are right alongside him in these moments of extreme tension. The camera's proximity to the characters also creates an intimacy, allowing the viewer to emotionally connect with Bourne as he navigates the confusion of his amnesia. In the action sequences, the handheld camera allows for quick cuts and dynamic, unpredictable movements. The camera seems to be in constant motion, just like Bourne, who is always on the run. This technique draws the viewer into the action, forcing them to experience Bourne's fear, confusion, and determination. One of the most iconic moments in the film is the car chase through Paris, where the camera moves with dizzying speed and energy. The camera's constant motion makes the viewer feel like they're in the car with Bourne, trying to evade capture. The rapid cuts between shots mirror Bourne's frantic state of mind as he desperately tries to escape the people who are after him. However, the film's cinematography is not only about fast-paced action. There is also a deliberate, calculated use of stillness and wide shots to create a contrast with the chaos. In quieter, more reflective moments, the camera often pulls back, allowing for longer takes and wide shots of Bourne's surroundings. These shots emphasize the loneliness and isolation Bourne feels as he tries to piece together his identity. In the scene where Bourne is seated in a diner, discussing his lack of memory with Marie, the camera pulls back to show the two of them framed against the backdrop of the city. This visual choice highlights the disconnect between Bourne and the world around him, reinforcing his emotional and mental isolation. It also adds a layer of poignancy to his journey, a reminder that his quest for self-identity is not just physical but deeply personal. The setting of the remote Swiss Alps is also a crucial element in creating the film's atmosphere. As the final act of the film unfolds, the sweeping mountains and icy landscapes provide a stark contrast to the bustling urban locations earlier in the film. The isolation of the Alps mirrors Bourne's personal journey of self-discovery. It is here that Bourne makes a critical decision about his future, and the cold, barren landscape serves as a metaphor for his inner turmoil. The vastness of the mountains symbolizes the immense task that lies ahead of Bourne, figuring out not just who he is but also how to take control of his own destiny. The film's settings and cinematography work in tandem to shape the mood and tone of the Bourne identity. Every location, from the busy streets of Paris to the quiet seclusion of the Alps, plays a role in reinforcing the themes of identity, confusion, and survival. The use of real-world locations lends authenticity to the story, immersing the audience in the world of Jason Bourne. The handheld camera techniques and strategic framing serve to keep the audience on the edge of their seats, emotionally invested in Bourne's journey. Through the careful combination of setting and cinematography, the film creates an atmosphere of tension, mystery, and suspense, keeping viewers hooked from the opening scene to the climactic finale. In conclusion, the Bourne Identity demonstrates how setting and cinematography are vital elements in the creation of a compelling and immersive film. The locations and visual choices not only add to the film's atmosphere, but also deepen its themes and emotional impact. By using real-world settings and innovative cinematography, the filmmakers crafted a movie that is both thrilling and grounded in reality, heightening the tension and creating an unforgettable viewing experience. The film's exploration of identity, memory, and survival is made all the more powerful through its strategic use of setting and cinematic techniques, ensuring that the Bourne Identity remains a classic in the action thriller genre. Behind-the-scenes stories from the Bourne Identity, 2002, reveal a fascinating look at the making of a film that would go on to redefine the spy thriller genre. The movie's production was not without its challenges, but the cast and crew navigated them with creativity, humor, and a shared determination to bring the story of Jason Bourne to life. From unexpected moments on set to the dedication required to make the movie feel so real, the behind-the-scenes process was an adventure in itself. In the early stages of the film's production, director Doug Liman was determined to make a spy thriller that broke away from the typical James Bond-style action movie. The genre had become saturated with flashy gadgets, exotic locales, and larger-than-life heroes. Liman, who had previously directed Go, 1999, and Swingers, 1996, wanted something different for the Bourne Identity. He aimed to create a more grounded, realistic thriller that emphasized the vulnerability of its protagonist. This approach started to shape the tone and style of the movie long before the first camera rolled. One of the first behind-the-scenes surprises came during the casting process. Matt Damon, who was already an established actor after Good Will Hunting, 1997, and The Talented Mr. Ripley, 1999, was not the obvious choice for a traditional action hero. He wasn't the muscular, suave spy that audiences might expect for the role of Jason Bourne. But it was precisely this contrast, Damon's everyman appearance, that made him the perfect fit for the character. Bourne, after all, is a man without memory, trying to figure out who he is and how to survive in a world that wants to kill him. Damon brought a raw vulnerability to the role, making Bourne relatable to audiences. Despite his previous success in drama, the physical demands of an action movie were something Damon would have to train for, and that became one of the first major hurdles of the production. To prepare for the role, Damon underwent intense physical training to get into shape for the action scenes. In fact, Damon put on around 20 pounds of muscle for the role. But it wasn't just about bulking up for the fight scenes. Damon wanted to make sure that his portrayal of Jason Bourne felt grounded in reality. He worked with fight choreographer Jeff Imada, who helped him learn practical combat techniques that would make Bourne's fight scenes look more authentic. The goal was for the action to feel raw and unpolished, not like the sleek, choreographed battles often seen in Hollywood action films. In one of the more memorable moments from the production, Damon, while filming an intense fight scene, inadvertently broke a tooth. The sequence was meant to be a brutal hand-to-hand combat exchange, but things went awry when Damon's fist collided with a piece of the set, knocking out a tooth. The accident resulted in a brief halt to filming as Damon had to get dental work done. The incident was a reminder of just how physically demanding the production was. The team didn't shy away from pushing their limits, and this commitment to realism is part of what gave the Bourne Identity its distinctive, visceral feel. While Matt Damon was preparing for his role, the rest of the cast and crew were also getting into the spirit of the movie. One of the most notable aspects of the Bourne Identity was the chemistry between Damon and his co-stars, particularly Franka Potente, who played Marie. Their relationship, which begins with tension and distrust but evolves into a partnership, is one of the film's emotional cores. The actors developed a strong bond during filming, with Potente often bringing a lightness to the set that contrasted with the intense nature of the movie. Damon, Potente, and Liman would often joke around between takes, but when the cameras were rolling, their performances were nothing short of captivating. Interestingly, some of the film's most iconic moments were improvised or changed on the fly. One of the most memorable scenes in the Bourne Identity is when Jason Bourne, in a moment of desperation, drives a car at high speed through the streets of Paris to escape his pursuers. The scene is chaotic, full of sharp turns and tight squeezes, and it makes use of the real Parisian streets to create an authentic, thrilling sequence. But what many viewers don't realize is that the sequence was largely improvised. The filmmakers didn't have a detailed plan for every turn and maneuver in the chase. Instead, they relied on the real-world environment of Paris and the capabilities of the actors and stunt drivers to make the chase feel spontaneous and unpredictable. According to Liman, the key to making the sequence work was embracing the chaos of the environment. Rather than trying to control every detail, the crew captured the sense of urgency and unpredictability that comes with being in a real, bustling city. Another surprise from the set was the way the film's action sequences were filmed. The crew employed a handheld camera technique that became one of the defining visual elements of the Bourne Identity. The decision to use handheld cameras was driven by a desire to create a more immersive experience for the audience. The shaky, almost jittery movements of the camera during the action sequences mirrored Jason Bourne's disorientation and panic as he tried to piece together his fragmented identity while being relentlessly pursued. But this decision also presented its own set of challenges. Handheld camera work can be difficult to pull off effectively, and it can be especially tricky when filming complex action scenes with multiple moving parts. The film's crew had to be nimble and precise, coordinating the actors, stunt performers, and camera crew in order to execute these sequences smoothly. The camera work in the Bourne Identity wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was also a practical necessity. Liman and his team wanted to make the audience feel like they were right there with Bourne, experiencing the same confusion and tension. This sense of immediacy required the camera to be in constant motion, following the action from one moment to the next. For some of the more intense scenes, like the fight between Bourne and the assassin in the apartment, the camera was right in the thick of the action. The crew had to work with minimal space and time to get the shot, often performing complex maneuvers in tight quarters. It was a collaborative effort that showcased the skill and dedication of the entire crew. But the behind-the-scenes challenges didn't stop with the action scenes. There were also significant logistical hurdles to overcome during filming. One of the most difficult aspects of the production was the international nature of the locations. The film was shot across various European cities, including Paris, Prague, and Berlin, and coordinating the logistics of moving a large production crew between these locations was no easy task. In some cases, the crew had to work quickly to capture certain scenes before they lost the natural light or had to work around busy city streets. In Paris, for instance, certain locations required the crew to work at night in order to avoid disrupting traffic or other activities. The production's quick turnaround times meant that the cast and crew had to be adaptable and resourceful, especially when dealing with the challenges posed by the weather, crowded locations, and tight schedules. Despite the logistical challenges, the cast and crew maintained a strong sense of camaraderie throughout the production. In many interviews, both Damon and Potente have reflected on how much they enjoyed working together, even through the tough moments. They would often spend time together after a long day of shooting, chatting about everything from their characters to their experiences on set. It was this bond that translated into the on-screen chemistry between Bourne and Marie, giving their relationship an authenticity that helped to anchor the film's emotional core. As Potente said in an interview, "We had so much fun on set, and I think that's why it worked. We were two people thrown into a crazy situation, and that's what we tried to bring to the screen." In the end, the behind-the-scenes stories of the Bourne Identity reflect a production marked by hard work, creativity, and collaboration. The challenges the cast and crew faced only served to make the finished product all the more impressive. With a mix of high-octane action, gritty realism, and an immersive story, the Bourne Identity became a benchmark for modern spy thrillers. It pushed the boundaries of what an action film could be, setting the stage for the Bourne franchise to evolve into a global phenomenon. The obstacles faced during filming were not just overcome, they were embraced, making the movie's final product all the more thrilling and unforgettable. The Bourne Identity, 2002, offers more than just high-paced action and thrilling car chases. Beneath the surface of explosive stunts and dramatic confrontations, the film weaves together a series of powerful themes that give the narrative depth and emotional resonance. These themes not only serve to enhance the plot but also provide a strong undercurrent that connects to the development of the central character, Jason Bourne, and the larger questions about identity, trust, and the consequences of one's actions. One of the most prominent themes in the Bourne Identity is the search for identity. The entire plot revolves around Jason Bourne, a man with no memory of who he is or where he came from, trying to piece together the fragments of his past. This existential journey forms the crux of the movie. From the very first scene, we see Bourne being rescued from the Mediterranean Sea, bleeding, confused, and unaware of his name or his purpose. His struggle to remember who he is becomes the emotional core of the story, providing both the motivation for his actions and the emotional stakes of the film. This theme of identity is symbolically mirrored throughout the film in various ways. Bourne's constant pursuit of knowledge about himself is reflected in the different environments he finds himself in. Whether it's the darkened alleys of Paris, the cold apartment rooms where he hides, or the high-speed chases across city streets, each setting symbolizes an aspect of his fractured sense of self. These environments are dynamic, unstable, and changing, much like Bourne's own psyche as he works to piece together his fragmented memories. The symbolism of the empty identity runs deep throughout the movie, illustrated in the metaphor of his blank passport. When Bourne first looks at his passport, he is struck by the lack of any personal connection to the name on it, Jason Bourne. This blankness isn't just about the name, it's about the lack of an identity, a past, and a future. It's a constant reminder of who he's lost and what he needs to reclaim in order to feel whole again. This idea is especially poignant as Bourne begins to learn more about the violent world he was involved in, an assassin's life that leaves little room for personal history or connection. A second prominent theme in the Bourne Identity is trust and the idea of being betrayed. As Bourne unravels the truth about his past, he discovers not only the violence he was involved in but also the people who betrayed him. Early in the film, when Bourne forms an uneasy alliance with Marie, Franka Potente, trust becomes a key issue. Marie is initially suspicious of Bourne's motives, and Bourne, in turn, doesn't fully trust her either. Over the course of the film, however, their partnership deepens, and trust emerges as the most essential element of their relationship. This development highlights the human need for connection and the vulnerability inherent in trusting someone when everything around you is uncertain. Yet, Bourne's trust in others becomes more complicated as he uncovers more about his life as an operative. The deeper he digs into his past, the more he realizes how little he can trust the people who once controlled his life. His former employers, the Treadstone program, manipulated him and erased his memory to create a weapon, a living tool devoid of personal identity or autonomy. His quest for self-discovery becomes not only a search for his true identity, but also a quest for the truth about the people who betrayed him and molded him into a killer. As Bourne uncovers more about his role in the program, the theme of trust shifts from a simple matter of personal connection to a larger question about the moral implications of manipulation, control, and the exploitation of individuals for political or personal gain. The theme of survival is also crucial to Bourne's journey. Throughout the film, Bourne constantly finds himself in situations where his survival is at stake, but survival is not just a matter of evading death. It is about reconciling with the violence he was made to commit, questioning whether it is possible to live a life free from the chains of his past actions. This internal struggle is made manifest through the film's action sequences, which are raw, brutal, and unrelenting. Bourne's survival is not just about outsmarting his enemies or fighting his way out of a dangerous situation. It is about figuring out who he is in the process. One scene in particular encapsulates this theme of survival, both physical and psychological. During the rooftop chase sequence, Bourne is pursued by a hitman, and in the midst of the chase, Bourne's instincts take over. He leaps across rooftops with a precision that reflects his training, and yet, in that moment, there's a sense of horror and confusion in his actions. He is surviving, but at what cost? What is it all for? The tension in this sequence is not just about escaping a deadly situation. It is about Bourne facing the consequences of his own abilities, his own body being used as a weapon. Symbolism plays a significant role in the Bourne Identity to underscore these themes of identity, trust, and survival. A key symbol in the movie is the idea of mirrors and reflections. Throughout the film, Bourne is often shown looking into mirrors or windows, moments when he is confronted with his own reflection, only to realize that it is not a reflection of the man he once knew himself to be. He is a stranger to himself, and this visual imagery serves to emphasize his sense of alienation. In one pivotal scene, Bourne is forced to confront the man he has become when he looks into a mirror and sees the assassin staring back at him. This moment marks the beginning of Bourne's internal battle to reconcile the man he was trained to be with the person he wants to become. The symbolism of the mirror reinforces the idea of a fractured self, of someone trying to understand and accept the parts of themselves that were shaped by forces beyond their control. One of the most striking features of the Bourne Identity is its unique use of sound. The film employs a minimalist sound design that serves to heighten the tension without overwhelming the audience with a heavy-handed score. Instead of bombastic, over-the-top music that typically accompanies action films, the Bourne Identity uses sound to complement the realism of its cinematography and editing. The film's score, composed by John Powell, is understated but highly effective in building suspense. Powell uses a combination of orchestral strings, electronic elements, and percussion to create a score that feels both contemporary and timeless. The music often fades into the background during moments of intense action, allowing the sounds of the environment, the rush of wind during a chase, the distant hum of an engine, the sound of footsteps echoing in a hallway, to take center stage. This approach adds to the film's sense of realism, making the world of the Bourne Identity feel more immersive and grounded. One particularly memorable use of sound comes during the climactic fight between Bourne and the assassin in the apartment complex. The fight is intense, brutal, and full of sharp, jarring noises. Grunts, the crash of furniture, the scuffle of feet on a hard floor. The soundtrack almost disappears entirely during this sequence, allowing the raw sounds of the struggle to take over. This decision to remove the music from the scene serves a few purposes. It makes the action feel more immediate and real, and it places the audience directly into the moment. Without the traditional bombastic score, the focus shifts to the sounds of pain, struggle, and survival, which deepens the emotional impact of the scene. The film's sound design also extends to its use of silence. In moments of tension, when Bourne is tracking someone or attempting to make sense of his situation, the lack of sound becomes a tool for suspense. The absence of noise amplifies the sense of unease and builds anticipation for what's to come. This subtle use of silence is a technique that is often underutilized in modern action films, but it is incredibly effective in the Bourne Identity. It's not just about what you hear, it's also about what you don't hear, and the silence adds to the growing sense of isolation that Bourne feels as he pieces together the fragments of his past. Another notable aspect of the film's filmmaking is the choreography of the action sequences. The fight scenes in the Bourne Identity are particularly well crafted, offering a fresh take on the typical action genre. Unlike many action films, which rely heavily on stylized choreography and over-the-top martial arts moves, the fight scenes in the Bourne Identity are grounded in realism. The combat is raw, fast-paced, and functional. Bourne fights to survive, not to look impressive. The fight in the apartment with the assassin is a perfect example of this style. It's not a choreographed dance, it's a chaotic, desperate struggle between two highly trained individuals. The fight is messy, brutal, and relentless, with both combatants using anything within reach as a weapon. This approach to fight choreography serves to heighten the realism of the film, making the action feel more visceral and immediate. The use of practical effects also enhances the realism of the action scenes. While many action films rely heavily on CGI, the Bourne Identity often uses practical effects to create its explosive moments. For example, during the car chase scene in Paris, the filmmakers employed real cars and stunt drivers to execute the high-speed maneuvers. The result is a chase that feels tangible and real, with every car crash and close call making the viewer feel as if they're in the midst of the action. The use of practical effects creates a sense of authenticity that is sometimes missing in more computer-generated heavy films. The film's box office production was equally impressive. The Bourne Identity was made on a relatively modest budget of $60 million, which is on the lower end for a Hollywood action film. However, it performed extremely well at the box office, grossing over $214 million worldwide. This success proved that the film didn't need to rely on excessive spectacle or a massive budget to captivate audiences. Instead, the film relied on its well-crafted story, grounded characters, and innovative filmmaking techniques to create a thrilling, immersive experience that resonated with a global audience. The film's success paved the way for sequels, each of which would build upon the foundation laid by the Bourne Identity in terms of both narrative and filmmaking style. In conclusion, the Bourne Identity stands as a testament to the power of innovative filmmaking techniques. From its handheld cinematography to its minimalist sound design, every choice made by the filmmakers was aimed at immersing the audience in Bourne's disorienting world. The film's action sequences are gritty and realistic, and the pacing keeps the tension high throughout. The sound and editing techniques work in tandem to create a visceral, immersive experience, making the Bourne Identity not just an action film, but a carefully crafted piece of cinema that resonates emotionally with its audience. Another recurring symbol throughout the film is the use of maps. At various points in the story, Bourne relies on maps to navigate his way through unfamiliar terrain, both physically and emotionally. Maps represent not only the literal journey he is on, but also the metaphorical journey of self-discovery. When Bourne uses a map to plan his escape or to figure out his next move, it signifies his attempt to regain control of his life and to create his own path, separate from the one that was laid out for him by others. The map is a tool that allows Bourne to chart a course towards his own identity, free from the constraints imposed by the Treadstone program. The relationship between Jason Bourne and Marie is another key area where themes and symbolism intersect. At the start of the film, their bond is based on a pragmatic need for survival. However, as the movie progresses, it becomes clear that their connection is also about trust. Marie, who initially has little reason to believe in Bourne's honesty, comes to understand his plight. The more they get to know each other, the more they trust one another, culminating in a moment where Bourne, having been repeatedly betrayed, takes a leap of faith with Marie. This emotional arc is a reflection of Bourne's journey towards self-acceptance. The love story is not just a subplot. It's the emotional heart of the movie, representing the hope that even someone who has been deeply manipulated and harmed by others can find solace and connection. The recurring motif of danger and escape also symbolizes the duality of Bourne's life. He is constantly fighting for his survival while attempting to escape the dark past that haunts him. As Bourne and Marie travel across Europe, they are continually confronted with the dangers of Bourne's former life. Each chase, each encounter with a hitman, represents a piece of Bourne's past that he cannot escape. The symbolism of the chase and escape underlines the emotional stakes of Bourne's journey. It is not just about evading physical danger. It is about escaping from the suffocating weight of his identity and the things he has done. Ultimately, the themes of the Bourne Identity and their corresponding symbols come together to form a complex narrative about the fragility of identity, the nature of trust, and the struggle for survival. At its core, the film asks a profound question. Who are we when we are stripped of everything? Our memories, our past, and our identity? And is it possible to rebuild ourselves from the pieces left behind? Jason Bourne's journey is an exploration of these questions, and the themes and symbols embedded in the film deepen the emotional impact of the story, allowing viewers to connect with the character on a more personal level. The result is a film that is not only an action-packed thriller but also a meditation on identity, memory, and the quest for self-understanding. The Bourne Identity, 2002, is a masterclass in modern action filmmaking, blending gripping action sequences with psychological depth to create a film that is as intellectually stimulating as it is thrilling. At its core, the film is a carefully crafted piece of cinema, one where each technical choice, whether it's the cinematography, editing, sound design, or the film's pacing, works in harmony to enhance the viewer's emotional experience. From the opening moments to the final action-packed sequences, director Doug Liman and his team used a range of filmmaking techniques that pushed the boundaries of genre conventions and set the stage for what would become one of the most influential spy franchises in cinematic history. The film opens in a way that instantly sets the tone for the rest of the narrative. The use of handheld cameras, a trademark of the film's gritty aesthetic, draws the audience into the chaotic and disorienting world of Jason Bourne. This decision to use shaky, unsteady shots mimics Bourne's disorientation as he awakens in the middle of the Mediterranean with no memory of who he is. The cinematography does more than just capture action. It creates a visceral feeling of confusion and vulnerability. The camera is often placed at a low angle or in close proximity to Bourne's movements, making the audience feel as if they are right there with him, experiencing the world through his eyes. In this way, the camera becomes a tool for empathy, allowing the viewer to connect with the character on a deeper level. The film's handheld cinematography plays a critical role in shaping the film's atmosphere. Throughout the film, the action sequences are shot with an almost documentary-like realism. This is especially evident in the close combat and chase scenes. The camera movements are jerky and fast, creating a sense of urgency and unpredictability. These moments are not merely action scenes, they reflect Bourne's inner turmoil. As he tries to piece together his fractured memory, he is also caught in a whirlwind of physical confrontations, constantly having to fight for his survival. The erratic camera work mirrors his disorientation and mirrors the intensity of the world he's been thrust into. This disorienting style, which would become a hallmark of the Bourne franchise, helps to immerse the audience in Bourne's personal journey. It makes the viewer feel as if they are moving with him through every tense moment, experiencing every danger firsthand. The editing also plays a critical role in enhancing the sense of disorientation and the frantic pace of the film. Editor Sar Klein, who worked alongside Doug Liman, utilizes rapid cuts to create a sense of urgency. The film features a number of quick, sharp transitions between scenes, often cutting between different characters and locations in a way that keeps the narrative moving quickly. This technique serves a dual purpose. Not only does it keep the audience engaged, but it also reflects the fragmented nature of Bourne's memory. As the film moves from one chaotic scene to another, the audience is kept on edge, never fully able to settle in one place. The rapid editing mirrors Bourne's mental state, constantly shifting, always looking for answers, always under pressure. The rhythm of the editing also builds tension, especially in the action scenes, where the quick cuts amplify the sense of danger and keep the audience on the edge of their seats. The pacing of the film is another critical element that enhances the storytelling. Liman's direction keeps the plot moving at a steady pace, never allowing the film to drag or stall. Each scene feels purposeful, whether it's a quiet moment of reflection for Bourne or an intense action sequence. The film never lingers too long on any one idea, always moving forward to the next revelation or the next conflict. This keeps the tension high and the stakes constantly escalating. At the same time, the pacing never feels rushed. Instead, Liman allows moments of quiet introspection to unfold naturally, particularly in scenes between Bourne and Marie, Franka Potente. These moments give the audience a chance to connect with the characters emotionally, building a contrast to the fast-paced action that often follows.